that the
Jimon.
total the, the total overhead costs that we need to absorb are 800,000, and using the absorption method, which uses one base, the base is direct labor hours of 50,000. Hey, somebody's
There is someone to call Nyasha.
there's some Tokos and Nyasha who are doing something. Right. Are we all on the screen now?
Yes, Doc.
Right. So
Yes, Doc.
allocating $800,000 worth of overheads, we divide by the direct labor hour, which is the one base. Yes, you can see we get $16 per direct labor hour. So it is this $16 that we use to allocate on each item. This is under absorption costing. So you'll see that we have now taken the direct labor, the direct materials, and the direct labor that we had shown on the previous screen. Those are, you remember when I said that the definition of a cost is made up of labor, materials, labor, and overheads. So we have got materials.
Techno savvy.
We have got direct materials there and then direct labor. And then we have now calculated $16 per direct labor, which means that product X for 5 hours times $16 gives us 80 as the overheads. Product Y, 4 hours times $16 gives us $64. So below there, you see the total unit product cost. X is 135.
Let's practice your English. Sure, let's do it. What's your name?
Right. X is the total cost of X unit is $135, and the total cost of Y is 105. As it appears, it still appears that Y is too good. But it is not good yet. Wait until you see the actual cost if we use activity-based costing. So the cost that you can see now on the screen is the absorption costing method. Right. If we go back, follow my screen. If we go back to the questions under required. So we've answered one there, which is under absorption costing. And you can see the cost per unit. There's someone at
Blessing, please mute your mic.
All right. Now we go to answer the question number 2. It is said that it is.
Sorry, Doc. Team, can you please mute our microphones? Tendero, Blessing, and others.
Right. We continue. Question number 2, which is saying, assume that the company now uses activity-based costing to compute overhead rates. So first of all, A, compute the predetermined overhead rate for each of the 6 activity centers. These activity centers, if you go up the screen, you'll find that is the original data. you find that there are activity centers there, which are now the cost drivers. In other words, the absorption under absorption costing, the direct labor hour is the cost driver. Now, under activity costing, we have now said that there are 6 activities in the manufacturing process of X and Y. And these 6 activities are the cost drivers. There's shower and blessing. Who must mute there and again?
Doc, maybe you can kick them out of the meeting.
Yeah, perhaps I should do that.
I think the host can mute them.
All right.
Yeah, he can mute them, or if he can't mute them, he can kick them out of the meeting. Then they rejoin.
Right. So there is that basic data there. I was saying that under absorption costing, we used only one cost driver. But under activity costing, we can use more than one cost driver. And in this question, there is the basic data, which is showing us 6 activity centers. And these activity centers are the cost drivers. There is labor related, there is machine setup, that is the number of machines that are being set up as a base. There's product testing. We are using the number of tests as a base. There's production orders. We are using number of orders as a base. Material receipts, we are using number of receipts as a base. And then general factory, we are using the machine hours as a base. Now, you can see that under estimated overhead costs on that data, we have got overheads totaling to 800,000. So that 800,000, you remember, under absorption costing, which we divided by 500 only and got $16, is now divided, is now allocated to each, or in other words, the 800,000 is now divided into cost drivers, and each cost driver is allocated an overhead cost. Together, all those overhead costs total 800,000. And you see on the other column, there is the total. You notice that under absorption costing, we had a total of 50,000, which is now divided into 10,000 and 40,000. 10,000 under X and Y, and 40,000 under Y. And the rest of the overhead costs are divided, as you can see on the screen. Under machine setup, we've got 150,000 overhead costs, which are divided which are allocated as a total of 500. Sorry. Right. Oh, I can't skip.
Which one do you want? This one.
No, later we move. I shall move. It won't move.
Which one more?
Okay, that's right. Okay.
That you want this part to go there, this part there. No, right now we cannot mark it, but we can mark it if we see it like this. Exactly.
Right. Okay, now you can see that basic data clearly. If you notice the under absorption costing that we had 10,000 directly by hours under X and 40,000 directly by hours under Y. So if we use more than one activity based cost, our costs, this is just the basic data which will be given, and our costs are divided along those lines. So if we go back to our question, which we read it again, we are assuming that the company uses activity-based costing to compute overhead rates, which means that there will be more than one overhead rates. In this case, there will be 6 overhead rates because there are 6 activity-based centers or 6 cost drivers. So we are being asked A to compute the predetermined overhead rate for each of the 6 activity centers. And then B, using those rates to determine the amount of overhead cost that should be assigned to a unit of each product. And then C, to determine the unit product cost of each product and compare this cost to the cost computed in 1B above, which is we are now comparing the activity cost-based costing and the absorption costing. So if we go down to the solutions, right, if we go down to
but I dropped 200. Plus 18,008.
right, we can continue. You can see on that screen. There's Tawanda Shanakira. Right. So yeah.
Transport yakufana 500.
Please, Tawanda Chanakira, can you mute?
All right. Niandishangira madzimai.
Tawanda Chanakira, can you mute?
Whose message you are reading and you wanna yakanzi ATC yakanzi Facebook.
He is not in the lecture.
But ndakapenda ni zero.
Okay, let's ignore him and continue. So you can see now on the solutions, we have put in there the activity-based centers on the first column, and then the estimated overhead costs as they are given on the activity, on the data given above there. And we have named that estimated overhead cost as A, and B, you've got your total activity, the expected activity is there also shown above there. So we want to calculate the predetermined overhead rate for each activity center. So we divide A by B to get a predetermined overhead rate for each center. So for the 6 centers or cost drivers, if we get those overhead rates for 80,000 divided by 50,000, you get $1.60 per direct labor hour. For 150,000, you divide by 5,000, you get 30,000 machine setups. For 160, you divide by 800, you get 20 tests. That is the overhead rate. For production orders, 70 divided by 400, you get $1.75 or 1.75 per order. Materials receipts, 90 divided by 750, you get 120. Receipts for general factory, 250 divided by 40,000, you get 6.25 per machine hour. Right. So if you go down the screen, you can see now where is to product A and product X. We are now applying those overhead rates to each product. So the labor-related rate at $1.60 per direct labor hour gives us $16 under X and $64 under Y. And so we apply the same throughout all those overhead rates. Then if you go down to total overhead costs assigned, which we've named A again, and product X, there's $316,500, and under product Y, there's $483,500. You recall that the number of units produced were 2,000 of X units and 10,000 of Y units. And those number of units, we have named them B there. So if you divide A by B, you get the overhead cost per unit. Now, you can see that the overhead cost per unit of Y is now far less than we have seen under absorption costing. Under absorption costing, it was 105? Now under absorption costing, it is now $48.35, which is far, far less. So what does that mean? If we go down again and show our products, you will notice that the total product unit cost for Y, or let me start by this way. Under absorption costing, we still take the direct labor hours that you have used under activity costing, we still take those direct labor materials and the direct labor, they still remain the same. Then we put in the new costs, which we got under activity-based costing, which is $158.25 for X and $48.35 for Y. So the total unit cost now reads, as you can see on the screen, $213.25 and then $89.35. Right. If you see in summary, calculating the costs using activity-based costing, our bread and butter unit, which is Y, which sells at high volumes, is now costing far much less than we had under absorption costing. Instead of $105 under absorption costing, it is now costing $89.35. So what it means that if we apply our selling price on that one, the selling price would be far much less than what it was before for Y unit. And this is our bread and butter unit, which is selling at high volumes, which means that now the company can compete fairly at the market with other companies. So if you read those notes, they are saying that not the unit price cost of product X is much greater than the cost computed in one above, which is under absorption costing. And the unit product cost of Y is much less using volume direct labor hours in 1B as a basis for applying overhead cost products has resulted in too little overhead costs being applied to product X, the low volume product, and too much overhead costs being applied to product A, the high volume product. So in short, what we are saying here is that now product Y, which is a high volume, no, is this the end?
That's the last slide.
No, that's the last slide. Yeah. Right. So on the last slide there, like I'm saying that you remember that we say that our product Y is our bread and butter unit, which is selling at high volumes. And previously it used to cost 105 if we calculated the cost using absorption costing. Now, if we calculate the cost using activity-based costing, the cost now has been reduced, and the total cost becomes $89 instead of 105. Now, this product can be sold at the market, computing against other companies, and because our price is now low, the selling price is now favorable. So we can sell even more than 10,000 of Y because it is our bread and butter unit. So that is the difference between costing using absorption costing and activity-based costing. Further, suppose this question comes.
The other guys were not muted because it's giving you feedback.
Can the other guys who are not muted mute, please? Fungai Joyce.
Doc, I just unmuted. I wanted to find out, isn't there a way the host can mute everyone?
Yeah, it's possible.
I think
possible.
we could. It's possible.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
I'm
maybe
not
the host
the
can mute
host,
because
but
No.
let's see, he's not muted. Yeah, of course, yeah. But
I just want to make sure that we don't have feedback.
Okay.
Because some others won't be able to listen to hear.
Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Right. Let's proceed. Now, I'm saying that suppose this question comes in the examinations. When is the examination, by the way? 14th of? Oh,
I think from
just close
14 to
by.
17.
Oh, that's close by. Oh, okay.
Proposed 9, 10, and 11.
Okay. I just want, let me be generous and say that this question is coming in the examinations. The different data and things of the sort. But this is going to be like a case study. So there will be like a play. This play will lead us to, if you can see on the screen, it will lead us, the players will actually come up with this data that you are seeing on the screen. But it will follow the same process. Firstly, calculate using absorption costing, and then use the data like what you are seeing on the screen to calculate activity-based costing. And then you have some comments. Meeting end in 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying that it is coming in the examination as a case study, and you see the same format as it is, but of course the data would be different. So when you start answering this question, in fact, this question is now the question number 1, which will be compulsory. I want you to get that correct. Question number 1, which is compulsory, and it takes 40 marks. So it will be like a case study, but with just to read through the case study, and then at the end, you see the data similar to this and calculate those things exactly the way we have just demonstrated. So I've just been generous there, and I expect everybody to pass. So reread this question, reread it, and reread it religiously. That's my advice.
Doc?
So let me just summarize.
Sorry, Doc.
Yes.
Morning.
Hello?
Good morning, Doc. Are you going to share the slide with us?
I can't hear you.
Are you going to share the slide with us?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Which slide is it?
The activity-based one was we hadn't shared this one. This slide.
Oh.
The PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
We haven't shared this one.
So let's.
Yeah. No, I'll share it once we're done.
All right. Okay, so I will just summarize here that we talked about, under this lecture, we talked about the basic methods of costing units. We said that the first method was marginal costing. Marginal costing, and marginal costing, only the variable costs are considered as the cost of one unit, and then you will deduct your variable cost from sales and get a contribution, and that contribution is used to cover all the overheads or the fixed costs. Then you get a margin. And then we talked about absorption costing. Absorption costing is sometimes called total costing, in the sense that it adds variables plus fixed costs. That is total costing. And then the formula is simply sales minus your costs, which is variable cost minus variable cost plus fixed costs. Then you deduct them from sales, you get your margin. that this absorption costing is the process is still the same with activity-based costing. The difference between activity-based costing and the absorption-based costing and activity-based costing is that under absorption costing, we use only one cost driver. And in this case, we have used the labor hour as the cost driver to allocate overhead costs. But under activity-based costing, we use more than one cost drivers. In this case, we have used 6 cost drivers to allocate the overhead costs and then come up with the cost per unit. You will see in the case study that I'm talking about is that there will be some people who will then come up with this data, the data that we've demonstrated there, and then you just use this data and calculate the unit cost as we have done and conclude with your comments like we have done. So we could be going further with marginal costing, but in the interest of time, we don't have much time now. I am now focusing on the examination. All the sections that we are going to be doing from now are examination based. So this one I've generously given you. We want to move, we'll share the screen, but we want to move away from this one and start another new chapter, which is the budgets. Perhaps we can take a short break, 5 minutes, and then we come back.
Let's wait. Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc.
All right, thank you, Doc. On another note, Doc, I'm seeing that our meeting can end in the next 4 minutes. So I think the meetings maybe are timed.
We will start again.
All right.
We request them to.
But let me just ask if Trevor can create one.
Yeah.
I think that's true.